Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk some Death March, episode 8. I think it's episode 8, I'm not gonna check. This is the 5th video. I've been delayed with the channel. Like the last time I uploaded was like last week's Death March episode. I'm tired. I just want to get this video out. Let's just do it. Let's get into it. Death March, episode 8. This time I did not read the manga. We're just going to talk about the episode. It's going to be nice. We got a lot of cool little things happening. We got the cradle. It's a good episode. We got Nana in this episode. I'm very happy. Nana was number 7, the first homunculus that Sato fought, just in case you were not aware. And yeah, okay. Woo. Let's do this. Wait, is it episode 8? No, that's going to haunt me. That's going to haunt me. Okay, great. Yeah, I got it right. Anyway, this episode, when I look at it and I think about like how I want to tackle the video, there's really a few points that I like on a concept level that I really want to point out because these are the neat things about Death March. So the ones that I will definitely talk about, and I'm just going through my notes here real quick, is specifically the game mechanics, like how the mechanics work with Sato, how his power or overpoweredness works to some degree, and this will kind of touch back on the idea of titles and just how the system is kind of optimized, or not optimized, but how the system is set up to work. And then the other point that I would really love to touch on is Dryad, because Dryad has a pretty interesting mechanic in how she operates, and on like, I don't know, on a concept level, I really like it. I really like it on a concept level. I think it's so cool. I want to talk about those 2 points in particular. So we're gonna get to there. Before that, let's cover some other little points. I'm just going through my notes here real quick. So standout moments for me that were just either kind of weird or something that I really enjoyed. First moment was when Sato was caught in the shadow prison. Whatever Sato was doing, first off, like when he fell into there, that was like the sequence from the opening, like without some extra overlays. And then Sato's just in there and he just datas himself. Like you see like the little energies going through his body and then he just kind of destroys it. If there was ever a moment of just brute force, forcing your way out of something without any kind of adherence towards the rules, it was that moment, man. Like of all the moments that you could say were just so aggressively just has to happen, that moment, that was so brute force. And it's funny. It's funny that the villain is calling Sato out on being a cheater. It's so funny. But when you look at the theme for the cradle, like this idea of cheater, calling Sato a cheater, is thematically appropriate to the setup of the cradle. So, you know, the theme integration into the rhetoric that's going on, really love that. Anyway, that was a standout moment just because it's so... It breaks rules. It pretty much breaks rules. There's no real rule established to let us, the viewer, understand what just happened there. Like when you see that, you just imagine like, yes, Sato must have pulled some level 310 shit. Moving on from there, another big thing that I enjoyed, well, I always enjoy the skills popping up because the skills give us, like, it informs us a little bit of Sato's intentions. Like earlier in the episode, there was the use of abduction against the Lich right at the beginning, against Zen. That's funny. Sato was going to knock out Zen so that he could take him in for questioning. That was funny. And then we do see the abduction skill being used later with Nana. She gets knocked out by Sato. So that was pretty good, and I loved the use of abduction later because it tells us how abduction would have worked if it worked on Zen. Really like that. That was just really clever. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the myth reference when it came to the giant golem. Sato took out one of the golem's letters and then he made the reference, this is how it works in our world's mythology. And I was just thinking, oh shit, I don't know this mythological story. I'm pretty sure, given the lettering of the characters, I would say it's probably a Greek story about how this worked. Anyway, it was most likely a riddle type thing. We know that Trazuyuya, I think was his name. From the way he sounds, it seems like this guy had knowledge of RPGs, of old school RPGs, and that's like Sato points out, this place is a more how would you say, it's an old school RPG. It's kind of modeled after an old school RPG. So given that this person would use those kind of tricks, I think it's pretty clear Tripl-L might have been reincarnated. He might be from another world. So that's pretty cool stuff. Other really nice point I loved was when we saw the homunculi the first time, and they were all just kind of like just having fun, goofing around, and then they got ready, and then they're playing the part of being a villain. So that's really cool. So really love those points. They were like my highlights, or my one-off highlights. Other thing, oh yeah, there's a holy sword Galahorn. Whatever, good stuff. So next, let's just talk about the intentions of things. First, Tripl-L, he has an interesting intention here. He made a dungeon for the sake of instilling a self-preservation instinct into the elves. That's very interesting. On a concept level, it's interesting to think of a conscious being not wanting to preserve its own life. Death March's elves, though, have an interesting mechanic being played into them. We'll find out more about that as the series progresses, but Tripl-L is giving us that kind of introduction here. The elves don't care too much about their life, and it'll end up getting them killed. And when you consider that Tripl-L has a outsider perspective, if he is reincarnated, he comes in with that extra set of information, then his desire to want the elves to be able to say like, oh shit, I want to live, let's get out of here. That's kind of admirable. So I really enjoyed that intention. And then on the other side, you have Zen. Zen is very clearly trying to make a hero. He has this trial. He is playing himself up as the villain. He wants a hero. He wants to birth a hero. He wants a person to come here. So that's very interesting. And then at the end, you have him giving Sato an impossible challenge, or what he believes in an impossible challenge, because he wants the hero to be born. So this is playing into a bigger thing, right? Like, this is talking about fighting against the world order. And you have a snippet of that at the beginning of the episode when he warns Sato about unique skills and gods. If you don't want Arisa to be a god's plaything, don't let her use her unique skill. So now already that's very ominous. And when you consider that, and you consider that Zen's intentions are really, he's trying to make Sato stronger, it makes you think like, all right, Zen as a person has pretty much set himself off as a step in the path. He is pretty much a rock on that stone paved road, that he's just another he's like pretty much the start of the heroic journey. That's what he wants to be. And that's a pretty interesting idea. Too bad Sato is aggressively overpowered. So those are the small points. Let's talk about the bigger points that I'm really excited about. We'll start with Sato's power. So this is pretty interesting in that Sato can be affected by the surroundings in a way that you wouldn't really expect a regular overpowered character to be affected by. But this could be really easily explained if we go into game mechanics. And for light novel or web novel readers, I'm not refresh my mind on the skill system in Death March. I'm just going to be working off what I've seen in the episodes, just for the sake of getting the idea across. So I saw comments in the episode when I was watching it. Well, why is Sato getting hit by this guy? Like, why is this guy giving him such a hard time? Why is Shadow able to affect him? He's only level 47. Well, when you look at what Sato's doing, at the very beginning, we had that moment with Arisa. And she helped Sato out, and she used her psychic resistance, she used her psychic powers to give Sato an opportunity. That was pretty cool, right? Like, on one level, you also have, like, the girls are being useful. This is going to be one of, like, Death March's things, making the girls confident. But other than that, you have her giving Sato the moment to help himself, for him to like make himself stronger. And we see what he does. He pumps his psychic resistance up to max. So right there, that's the key to the system. This is like, imagine one of those video games where you level up, but every time you level up, you get skill points, right? Even if you were to level up to, say, level 20, in this style of game, your stats haven't really increased. They haven't really increased unless you devote the skill points that you got from your level up. Now, for Death March's case, I do believe Sato's HP and MP, those stats are independent of the skills. They go up as Sato go up, or as Sato goes up, and maybe other little stats might also go up. We know he can be he can lob giant fireballs that look like they're something else when they're actually just really basic fireballs. We know he does that, so we know that there is some growth. We know it's a hybrid system when it comes to the level ups, but when it comes to whether or not he can be affected by his opponents, it does seem that the skill system is what ultimately comes into play here. For instance, if he doesn't have shadow resistance, he's going to be affected by the shadows. If he doesn't have psychic resistance, he's going to be affected by psychics. I think that's a very interesting way of giving Sato some degree of challenge, in that it makes it so that he's not untouchable unless he wants to be untouchable. But that also plays into the next thing. Like, people ask, well, why can't Sato just one-shot the guy with a fireball? Well, there's also the thing, well, Sato doesn't want to make a big deal of it. And we do get a little cue to that in the episode when Sato looks at the little girls and is like, okay, good, they're sleeping. Sato doesn't want to make a big deal out of things. He just wants to go and have a peaceful life. So because of that, that's his primary reason for him to not act out in a way that's super flashy. Anyway, the most interesting thing I found there is just how much the skill system matters. It doesn't matter if Sato is particularly strong. Things like resistances, those are still things that he actively has to devote points to. In the same way that he has to actively devote points to Poker Face, he has to actively devote points to Abduction. But I think it's only 1 out of 10. Or 1 to 10, so Sato's already, I think, maxed out most things. Given that he went to level 310, however, we know he has more skill points. He probably has hundreds of more skill points that he just hasn't devoted because he hasn't had a reason to. Next really interesting person, Dryad. I was so excited to see Dryad because I find Dryad just to be so cool. Again, I love the interplay of the skill system and the title system. Like, Sato acquires Dryad's victim. Love that. I found it hilarious. But now Dryad is interesting because she offers an idea of a different way of consciousness. And on some level, you know, I read that and I get excited because, like, those are cool ideas. Those are kind of ideas that you would usually find, let's say you're reading up, maybe you'd probably find that kind of reasoning in like books like The Secret Doctrine or Alice Bailey's books, all those kind of ones, all the esoteric scriptures. You'd find that kind of reasoning worked out. For this one, it's pretty simple, right? If you didn't understand it, it's pretty much, imagine you make 3 clones of yourselves, and then there's 2, so there's 4 people total. You can sit in a spot and you have your 3 clones going out. You know, your clones are technically all individuals. They're all acting with tendencies that you would have as a person. But the neat thing is, as your clones are doing things, you know, you get to see what your clones are doing. So you could be there and you can just be looking through the eyes of your clone and you understand what your clone's doing. Like, if your clone goes out and learns how to make candy, your main body is learning how to make candy too, right? It's pretty much that kind of idea that Dryad is setting up. Dryad makes it pretty interesting in that the Dryads can be technically disconnected, and we find that with the second Dryad. She's been cut off from the first Dryad, but once she's reborn and she sees Sato, she's like, oh yeah, I know you. You were talking to me just a little bit ago. So it's like a continuity of consciousness, which is pretty cool. So that second Dryad knows that she just attacked Dryad, but she knows that her current body, the one that's showing up in front of Sato, doesn't have enough energy. So she violates Sato's lips for the second time. I really like her model of working. It's pretty much, you have an individual who also has the option of connecting to her full set of knowledge. This mechanic, I think, occurs one more time in Death March, but it's just cool to see it here. So when you look at that Dryad, you have to like take into consideration, well, this Dryad is an individual in that this is the first time we've seen this Dryad in this form, but this Dryad also has the knowledge or the memories of meeting Sato in other places. So it's pretty cool. It pretty much means that all the Dryads in the world right now know what Sato is about. They know they've met Sato, so there could be a Dryad on the other side of the world be like, oh yeah, Sato's a cool guy. So it's just kind of like that. And their individuality is the interesting part. Because it's the same person, because it's the same set of tendencies, obviously they would almost all work with a unified goal. Anyway, I really like the Dryad. I like it on a conceptual level. I think it's pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I have really nothing else I want to point out for here. And let me just look through my notes one more time. Yeah, no, we got Nana. We have Sato fighting things. Oh, there was a scene that when Sato's looking through a door, it looks like a hardcore dungeon crawler. But other than that, that's it. Death March, episode 8. I really enjoyed it. But guys, let me know what you thought down below. And yeah, let's say bye till next time. I hope you have a great day.